We know 82% of all cyber events have a people component, and phishing is a vast majority of these. So after receiving a couple of phishing emails myself over the last couple of weeks, I thought I would pull together a little video just to give you some of the indicators to look out for and what to do if you receive a phishing email. My name's Chris Buxton, and I help organizations make the most of their data and technology enabled opportunities. Okay, so let's have a look at the email itself. So this is an email that I received a couple of weeks ago. Now, Inland Revenue, I know, like most major financial institutions, has a mechanism for customers to report these sorts of scams so that they can actually deal with it appropriately. In this case, I know Inland Revenue have an email address that if you go to their website and just look through the contact us list, there's a number of emails there. One of them is about reporting scams, fraud, tax evasion. It's an email address you can forward scam emails to, or any email that you're suspicious about, forward it to them. They have a team of people that will investigate, have a look at that email, look at any detail, and then take appropriate action. So it gives you that confidence that it's not you trying to deal with these things yourself. You just forward it onto Inland Revenue or the banks or any financial institution, and they will take the action on behalf of all of their customers. As we start to look at the email itself, then there's a few telltale signs. And as I say, this isn't a particular sophisticated attack. The first thing really to look at is the sort of body of the email and what it's asking you to do. So phishing emails will try and create a sense of urgency. Now, this is quite important for them because when we have that sense of urgency, we perhaps take less time to look at the content, look at what it's trying to get us to do, and we try and take action. In this case, the urgency is being created around the GST return. It's not the action related to the refund, but it's designed to try and get me to action the email quicker. That's the whole point. That's what it's trying to get me to do. Because the attackers know the longer we have to think about things, the longer we have to really look at the detail here, the more likely it is that we're going to discover that it is a phishing attack. So that sense of urgency is important. So if you do get things that have this sense of urgency, it's important that you just take a moment, step back and have a think about, does this sound like a plausible action that this department, this organization would be asking me to do? Now, in this case, it's asking me for credit debit card details. I know Inland Revenue would never do that. So that's not the way that Inland Revenue execute. Similarly, banks will not ask you for debit or credit card details or any payment details like that through an email. One of the general protections you can apply is never respond through the email itself. Always go via the legitimate website for the organization. And that just gives you an added protection because that's your authorized way that you're going to be interacting with that organization. It means you can spend a little less time worrying about the email, because if you have got an action that's required of you in here, it will be in their application as well and in their website. So you'll be able to go through there and deal with it appropriately. Now, the other big thing to look at is the source address of where it came from. So this one is coming from Inland Revenue, supposedly. So I would expect to see the email address to also be reflecting Inland Revenue. Now, in this case, there's no relationship between the sender's email and Inland Revenue at all. The IRD that has been appended here is an email alias that anybody can do in any email. So it gives the illusion of coming from Inland Revenue, but it's quite obviously not an Inland Revenue email address. So a big red flag. And that was probably the first thing for me that really triggered me that this isn't a legitimate email at all. The other thing is any emails that has links in it, if you hover over that link, you can get a view of the URL that it's redirecting you to. So in the same way that you would expect the email address to be the legitimate domain, the address that you're being asked to link to would also be the legitimately linked to the organization. Sometimes, you know, these domains, it might be as simple as a slight spelling mistake in the wording, or it might be an extra punctuation in the name, or a very subtle replacing an E with a 3 that looks similar at a very small font, but it catches you out. And I think that general rule of going through the website, not the link, just allows you that protection, because, as I say, some of these can be quite sophisticated and quite hard to pick out. In this case, again, fairly unsophisticated, pretty obvious. It's not an inland revenue domain. I have no idea what it is. This is the domain I sent off to Inland Revenue, and they got the site shut down. Okay, so that's just a few of the basic indicators and red flags to look out for in an email that can just give you that insight that it is a phishing attack. And then if you do get one, just what you're supposed to do with it. Email remains our biggest vulnerability. So understanding phishing and being able to identify them is probably our number one biggest control that we need to think about in organizations. Hopefully you found that useful today, and hopefully that'll mean that you won't get caught out by one of these attacks in the future. My name's Chris Buxton, and I help organizations make the most of their data and technology enabled opportunities.